After a number of delays, we are finally able to get back to our build of the Iron Man Mark III from Fanhome. So without further ado, I'm Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for GamingTrend.com. Let's unbox this and get back to assembly. So with this shipment, we're finally getting to some of the goodies that you get every couple of shipments. And that's gonna start with these 3 posters. Go ahead and bring that up here. That one's pretty awesome. But they're all pretty cool. So let's go ahead and spread these out so you can get another good look at them from top down. These are all definitely frame-worthy pieces, and I will definitely set those aside and keep them safe. As always, we have our 4 comics. So we'll go ahead and open these up one at a time as we build each of the pieces and take a look at what's inside. Set those over here for now. That's episode 7, 8, 9, and 10. So these pieces are going to be our assembly today. So let's open them up and get a closer look. Yeah, we could wait until the instructions tell us to open these. Where's the fun in that? So for this first part, we're gonna assemble the right forearm, and it's gonna be episode number 7. So let's open that up and see what's inside. This looks like a continuation of The Enemy Inside, which is really about Tony Stark's struggles with his internal demons, and most certainly the bottle. So looks like we're gonna get right into the forearm here, so we'll skip past that and come right back to it. And then the worst of both worlds. So this is the fight between Obadiah Stane and Tony Stark, as well as, if I'm right, yeah, his son. So Zeke Stane, which is obviously something they didn't cover in the movies, but that's Obadiah's son. And Tony Stark ends up having to pretty much whip him too. So if you're into comics, it's a good read. So this is another one of the Mark V armor. So the Model 5 armor is the outer space armor, and then there's over here in the corner the Model 14C. As usual, Tony Stark tests these in production. So again, if you're into the Iron Man comics, then I highly encourage you to pick these up. There's some good reads, and what I love about them is that they tie directly into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You'll hear names like Roxxon Energy, and unless you've read the comics, you have no idea what that is or who that relates to. So if you're a comic dork like I am, then you can jump into these and be like, yeah, okay, now I see where they're going with that, or it opens up some possibilities for where we go with the next phase of the Marvel MCU. So flipping back to the instructions page, we're gonna assemble that right forearm. So we should be looking at a set of BP screws, a set of DM screws, and then inside this little container here, we have the forearm plate, as well as the forearm top and the right forearm itself. So let's get those put together. This should be a pretty quick build on this one. Don't mind me circling underneath this, that's my overhead camera. That's what's allowing me to get these awesome shots that you'll see in just a little bit as we jump back and forth. Okay, we'll get those BP screws out. It looks like those are first. So we flip this over, and this seems to just attach. There's some small pegs here on this part that simply snaps into this piece. that, giving it its signature Iron Man golden red look. So for this next part, we're going to simply attach the top to the plate. There's a small screw hole that you can see there. That's going to go into this screw plate there. Just drops on top, and then we're going to take this BP screw and drop it right into that hole right there. So we'll grab our screwdriver and accomplish that. Remember not to over tighten these. They are small screws with small threads. This may be metal, but that is plastic. So looks like that's all assembled. Next, we're gonna build the forearm joint and get that connected. Now in our previous build, we had already built the forearm, as well as some other pieces like the head and the hand. So we're gonna need that forearm piece for this next assembly. So flipping this over, we're gonna take this elbow joint here, forearm joint, and you can see this small square here. That square is gonna lay right into this square right here on the forearm piece, and it kind of locks into place. And from there, we're gonna drop one of these DM screws right into, there we go. We now have a bendable arm piece for the forearm. We're also going to drop this second DM screw into this square to lock it in place. That's why they use the DM screws, because they have that small plate on the outside to prevent it from moving. And just like that, we have a nice secure elbow joint and forearm piece. Before we go putting this away, I do want to flip to the next step here, even though this is final assembly, because it does show where all of this is going to end up. So you get a bit of a visualization of some of the other pieces we're going to put together later and what it will look like in the final assembly. Episode number 8 is entitled Iron Man versus Cosmic Powers, and also six decades of metal, which sounds awesome already. So there's a great opener. Not always have the Avengers always gotten along. There's a nice shot of Iron Man about to wreck the original costume for Hawkeye. And a quick look at some of the other Avengers in their original costumes. It's kind of a blast of the past. And down here we have Thanos and the Jewels. That would be the original concept for Thanos. Thanos was in love with death, as in the death, and thought that it might be great if he collected the stones of infinity, the Infinity Stones, and intended to detonate them as kind of a love letter to death. So insane, but probably a little weird for the screen. So I kind of understand why they went a different direction with that. Then we have the assembly of the right forearm. I mean, if you're gonna do the left, you're gonna do the right. And then 6 decades of metal. So 60 years of all the various Iron Man incarnations, as well as the various art styles, and kind of his rebirth in 2005. And Tony has an armor for every occasion. So here's the hydro armor, because of course he has an underwater armor set. Tony Stark is Tony Stark. So let's get back to building. So back to the build, we're gonna build that right forearm, but it's not exactly a mirror of the other side. We're not just rebuilding the second half. There are a few additional pieces here. So it still starts off with this forearm protector going over the top here with just a couple of snaps here and a screw to hold it in place. So we'll grab that BP screw and lock that down. I just want to emphasize again how much I appreciate that Fanhome does include extra screws. I keep all of them just in case, but I only need 1 screw and they gave me 2 for this BP. Just in case, you know, you drop one and maybe you're assembling on carpet or something weird and it's gone forever. So I have a spare. So that's very handy. Thank you very much to Fanhome. All right, so that piece was easy. Let's see, the next piece is the forearm protector. and this kind of knuckle piece and this rubber grommet piece. So let's go ahead and put this knuckle joint in here. I think they're calling it a wrist joint. So I guess that's more what it is than a knuckle joint. So I'm looking for daylight here so I can align it for the screw. And then hopefully it will go in a little bit easier. All right, so that's flush, and we make sure that it continues to move freely, which it does. So now we'll put this rubber grommet piece, which they're calling a wrist joint cover, over the top, just like so, and you're done. So we'll set that aside. And let's see, insert the wrist joint assembly as shown in the inner slot of part AA. The tab on 8D should be perpendicular to the groove. All right, I think I can do that. Let's see. Should just slide in just like so, with the rubber grommet piece kind of sliding into those second grooves on the top, just like that. And now the wrist can move up and down. I think that's the intention. Considering our wrists don't move that far side to side, up and down seems like a more logical choice. So we'll lock that in place, and we'll set that aside. Now we're going to grab the forearm assembly that we just put together, and we're going to go ahead and put those together, creating the forearm entirely. Getting these to align is always a bit of a challenge because you have to line up these little grooves here on both sides, but fingers crossed that this will go well. Let's go ahead and put these two together. A little bit of finagling, yeah, piece of cake. And that's what that should look like. Let's make sure that it's all together. Oh, it looks like there's a little bit of a gap there, so we're gonna have to investigate why that is. So let's troubleshoot. Oh, this piece wanted to turn sideways. Had a feeling that might happen. So I was slightly incorrect on this. So these little tabs here on the rubber grommet, the wrist joint cover, goes on the sides here, and then these long tabs go like that. This is one of those fiddly bits kind of moments, but we'll get it. All right, we've kind of got that seated. There we go. Now we should be able to just snap this in place. All right, no seams. So we're gonna go ahead and drop these EM screws into place and lock it down. All right, all 4 screws are in place and we don't have any seams of any kind. And the arm does actuate well, as does this wrist piece. So that looks like this part is done. So let's change pages and we get a bit of a preview again of how this will all come together as we assemble. Now, episode 9 is a fun one. I mean, they're all fun, but this one's especially fun because it includes a lot of information that was either omitted from the movie or just completely skipped over in the MCU entirely. So it starts off with Tony Stark and his ongoing relationship with Janet Van Dyne, as in Hope Van Dyne's mom. So Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne got divorced and Tony took up residence. So this is all something that they've decided to skip over in the MCU, and it's about his struggles with Janet Van Dyne and whether or not to tell him or tell her his secret identity. It's all a lot of fun, so I encourage that one. This is about the foundation of S.H.I.E.L.D. Tony Stark was one of the primary members of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it wasn't actually until much later. He was actually the 7th director of S.H.I.E.L.D. after Fury went on the run. and after the superhero Civil War. So lots of interesting information, again, that was kind of skimmed over. Kind of Maria Hill's, she was actually the 6th director for S.H.I.E.L.D., so it's a lot of information that we kind of glossed over in the Avengers movies that you might find interesting. And then the last thing is the Model 7. So Tony Stark is nothing if not the opposite of subtle, and this piece of armor is subtle. It's a stealth piece of armor tech that Tony had developed, making him, as they called him, the Iron Ninja. So if you manage to pick up this this particular comic, you might be able to win a 10-speed racer, so you got that going for you. So let's get back to assembly. This one's gonna be really fast. So this is mostly the finishing pieces for this forearm assembly that we've been building all along. So taking the right forearm, we're going to attach this forearm cover, which simply snaps into place. There are 3 little holes here that you can see, and 3 little pegs, not pigs, pegs. And this simply pops into place, like so, covering up the screw holes where we did previous work. So nice and clean. This next piece is really just prep work for an additional piece later, and this is the elbow guard. So we're gonna add the elbow guard, and we're gonna add these little, what are they calling them? Elbow covers. It's impossible to mess these up, just like everything else that Fanhome has done. There's a large hole here and a small hole there, and they correspond with the same on the covers, so simply line them up. There is a direction here indicated, so make sure you follow that. And it's as simple as lining them up and dropping them in place. Just like that. Turning the page one more time, we do get to see, again, some visualizations about how all of this will come together and where it will fit in the overall armor when it's assembled. So you can start to see that forearm come to life. I can imagine we'll be attaching this hand piece to it very soon. Our last piece of assembly for this month, and yes, I'm as sad about that as you are, is episode 10. So this is Iron Man versus Whiplash. So Whiplash in the comics looked quite a bit different than Anton Vanko did in the movies, but this is kind of the start of Tony's thoughts around the Avengers Initiative and his armor around the world, or suit of armor around the world concept that eventually led to much worse things than Anton Vanko, and also the rise of discount Tony Stark here, Justin Hammer, and the rise of Pepper Potts. Our first brush with Miss Romanoff here. We wouldn't see her later until really the Avengers movies, where she really got some room to run. Rhodey, including a actor change, and Whiplash is an interesting character. Yeah, here we go. So Whiplash is an interesting character because it's not really the last time that Tony faced somebody with that name. Multiple iterations of that Whiplash character were introduced throughout the comic runs, and Anton Vanko is far from the last time that we'd see Whiplash. So if you really enjoyed the Whiplash character, there's quite a bit of a different look and characterization for Vanko and also the other later Whiplashes. So I encourage you to check that out. There's a lot of info that they definitely either glossed over or just changed entirely. Although it is entertaining to hear people talk about their board multiple times in that movie. So there you go. Let's get back to assembly and finish this one out. Before we get into assembly, there is a really cool thing here that I really appreciate about what Fanhome has done. So all throughout these comics, there's also some kind of interstitials that are either technical, especially like the R2-D2 one had a whole bunch of things on robotics. And here we have some technical advice on how to magnetize a screwdriver. So this one happens to be magnetized, but if your screwdriver were to become unmagnetized, here's how you can remagnetize it. That's kind of cool that they included that, because it certainly makes assembly much easier when you're using a magnetized screwdriver and you don't have to worry about conductivity or any other issues with magnets. But it makes putting these small screws in a lot easier. So it's very cool for them to include that. So let's get to assembly. Obviously we've been building this cool forearm here. Eventually this is gonna have to connect to the shoulder piece. So that looks like what we're gonna do now is connect all these pieces to create a right shoulder joint. So without further ado, let's see, 10A is the shoulder joint. Well, that's literally the piece I was just holding. So there we go. And we're gonna be attaching these adhesive paper, it's basically tape, to those pieces, I think to help with maybe just keeping those a tighter fit so they don't get loose. So I'm gonna take a second, pause, and put these in the right place, and I'll be right back. So we're gonna peel this off, and it looks like it goes right inside this little circle here. I have a terrible relationship with tape, so I'm gonna do my best to get these straight. I think I did all right there. Somehow it didn't end up wrapped around my face or something, so look at that. Success. I've managed to put tape on a piece of plastic. Go me. And I think we're doing that on the other side, so let's see if I can do it twice. A little punch out circle piece here, but I'll get that after. Nope, see, I didn't get that one straight, so I'm gonna try and pull that out and do it again. Well, there's the circle piece that came out. You can at least get that out of the way. I don't think it would be fair for me to cut and redo all of these shots with my mistakes not shown, because these are the kind of things that you might run into yourself. So better to show it so you know what you're getting into. You might not have the same problems with tape that I do. This might be super easy for you, but there we go. Tape on two sides. I've accomplished something today. All right, so these next pieces looks like joint washers. Looks like we're gonna put tape on the outside here. There's two little notches on this side, and it's a flat surface on this side, so it's gonna go on that flat surface. So here we go with the tape again. And I managed to not get the circle out again. Where are you going? All right. Nope, not straight. Let's try again. Thankfully, they also include some extra pieces on this, so if I were to mess up this tape pretty badly, I at least could use one of the spare pieces. No, not quite straight. All right, I think I've kind of got that mostly straight. So we'll set that one aside and we'll do it again. All right, I'm pretty happy with that one right out of the gate. So we'll just punch out this center piece. Set that one aside. And I think we're all set. So let's put it together. So this next part, we're going to take this joint cover and we're going to take one of these joint washers, and those little nubs that I mentioned before, those little notches, those are going to sit inside of this part right here to prevent it from turning once it's fully assembled, and leaving the friction disc on the outside. So this should lock in place just like that. It does not turn, and this friction disc will provide some sort of grip when it's all assembled. So, I mean, there's your assembly right there. Piece of cake. So we are creating a bit of a clutch system, if you will. So we're gonna do this a few more times. Drop this in this centerpiece on this one. So it doesn't move. Now we have two of them. And then this part is going to go into the center like so. So that creates this motion, but it doesn't go past that part right there. And then we're gonna put it all together. I'm gonna drop this part out and put these two friction discs together. That might be easier. And then put this on top. once we've got it all kind of put together, then I have to manage to get the screw through it. So that looks right. Yep, and it does rotate. So we're gonna drop that screw through it. And one of the things that I like is, see how there's a hex shape right there? That means you don't need an additional tool. You drop the screw in through here, and this nut here is gonna go inside this hole on the other side. And because of that shape, it's gonna lock it in place. So when we screw this together, I don't need a wrench to try and fit in there, and I've tightened it a little too much. I'll loosen it just a little. And now I have a working shoulder assembly, just like so. So we'll be ready to finish assembly on later pieces soon. Awesome. So taking a look here on the next page, again, oh, nope, just on this part here. So we get a bit of a breakdown on what this will all look like when it's all said and done. Looks like they've got the joint set that way. And we'll be attaching it right there to the shoulder and to the elbow joint. So stay tuned for our next episode, which should be very soon. Thankfully, I think we're back on track for a regular cadence on these. So I've been Ron Burke, Editor-in-Chief for GamingTrend.com. Thank you for joining us. If you enjoyed this, please hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you again very soon.